Hey folks, warming up your aim before a match by using the shooting test in the practice range definitely isn't bad, but a lot of you might find that the consistency and accuracy you achieve here won't always translate directly to a competitive match. The reason for this is that you're only really focusing on one aspect of your gameplay, aiming and specifically flicking, when in reality almost every situation you'll be in uses a few more fundamental mechanics which you aren't warming up using this method. By warming up with a more realistic and common in-game scenario, we could get a lot more out of 5 or 10 minutes of warm-up as opposed to only focusing on aim training and nothing else. And no, I'm not talking about the spike plant and defusal modes, so stick with me. I hope you'll find this as useful as I do. To briefly summarize what I'm going to go through, I'm going to show you a way to warm up your aim, but also warm up those other important mechanics like crosshair placement, strafing and peeking from cover, not over-peeking, and isolating engagements, all in one single and very efficient warm-up exercise. Unfortunately, the current iteration of the practice range doesn't give us many tools to warm these things up yet, but I've come up with a really nice temporary solution, which I find very useful for getting a more comprehensive and well-rounded warm-up done. The key to this method is Sage's Ice Wall, so we're going to go ahead and hop into the practice range and make sure we choose Sage. What we're going to do is use Sage's Ice Wall to create barriers that we can utilize in our warm-up exercise. This is super cool because you can get really creative with it by making different layouts and getting something which really feels like part of an actual map, but you really only need a basic one-wall setup. That being said, it is fun to get a little more creative with it, so I'll show you some of that later on. To set this up, we're going to come into the practice range settings and spawn the bots, as well as turn on strafing. I usually start with a pistol here and turn armor off because it's a little bit closer to what a pistol round is going to be like. But after we do pistols for a bit, I'll turn armor back on and switch to either the Phantom or the Vandal. I don't really touch any of the other settings. I don't think they make much of a difference for what we're trying to set up here. Next, we're just going to throw up an ice wall right in front of us here, and then we're going to use this ice wall to peek from to help us warm up. This sounds really simple, but there's a lot more to how you approach the warm-up, which is going to make a big difference in your gameplay during an actual match. I think the key here is sticking to one side at a time, because so many bots spawn and you can't change how many bots spawn. If there's too many bots, it's just not very useful because it's kind of hard to miss. So by sticking to one side at a time, they'll all start to spot on the other side, and that'll allow you to have fewer bots which you can then actually react to and actually practice with. To get the most out of warming up this way, I want you to have a few key things in mind while you're actually doing it. The first thing that I want you to focus on is not over peeking, by working on only peeking into one enemy at a time. This is a super important habit to work on because over peeking or wide swinging into a 2v1 or a 3v1 scenario during a match is almost always going to result in you being at a severe disadvantage. So practice only peeking into one enemy at a time. And if you accidentally peek into too many, or a bot just spawns into your view or something, well, that brings us to the second thing to keep in mind, which is isolating engagements. What I mean by isolating engagements, at least in this context, is quickly repositioning to turn a 2 or a 3v1 into a 1v1. This is another good habit or instinct to form, just simply due to the fact that many times it's going to be better to move to adjust your positioning on the fly in order to convert a 3v1 to a 1v1 than it is to just commit to the 3v1 which you accidentally peeked into. To start to build this habit, we want to practice quickly noticing when we have more than one enemy on the screen at a time, and then adjusting our peek to isolate just one single bot. I think the best thing that can happen with this is when bots respawn in your view, because it's actually a bit similar to a pretty common scenario where an enemy peeks you from an angle that you may have already passed over while pushing into a new part of the map. Once you realize you overpeaked, or you see that bot respawn into your view, adjust your positioning to isolate it again to a 1v1. This, in combination with the first point, is really important in Valorant because of the way tagging works. If you aren't quick to immediately adjust your angle like this, it'll likely be too late because you'll already be taking damage and getting slowed to the point where you just can't reposition at all. So the big idea here is to try not to overpeak, but we definitely want to have an idea of what to do if we accidentally find ourselves in that situation. As for crosshair placement, there are a lot of guides out there on this topic already, and I still might make one, but by adding the element of cover, and especially with more creative wall layouts, we're able to warm up our crosshair placement while we warm up everything else too. There's not much else to say about this one, but let me know if you want a deeper dive into crosshair placement in another video. So I'll do maybe 4 or 5 minutes of this with the pistol, and then switch to the rifle and do another 4 or 5 minutes, and then in 10 minutes we've warmed up our aim, but we've also warmed up all of these other important gameplay mechanics, which we're going to be frequently using in a competitive match. Like I mentioned earlier, you can get super creative with this by using multiple walls to make some pretty cool setups, which make it really feel like you're peeking an angle on an actual map. Definitely try this out and have fun with it. I think it's a great way to spice up a more basic warm-up routine, and a lot of fun coming up with just different layouts and setups. That being said, there are some things about this setup that could be better. For instance, there's just way too many bots that spawn. To fix that, I like to sort of compensate by creating an artificial back wall so that some of them get trapped back there when they respawn, and that just helps to cut down the number of bots a little bit. It'd be really great to have a control in the range settings to just adjust the number of bots that spawn in the future. I wouldn't be surprised if they add that in, but as of now they don't have it. Another obvious annoyance about this method is that Sage's ice wall only stays up for a certain period of time, and that time gets shorter if you accidentally shoot the wall, which is going to happen. I think a huge improvement Riot could implement here is just enabling cheats in practice mode and providing one that makes your wall invincible, or they could just add the ability to get some boxes to pop up here, which you could then use instead of the ice wall. With that being said, it's pretty quick to put up another wall, and it's kind of fun trying out different layouts and positions whenever the walls do break, so I really don't think these factors completely ruin the effectiveness of the exercise itself. I still think this is a lot more effective and efficient than just warming up your aim. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope this video helps you out, especially if you're a beginner and new to Valorant or the tactical shooter genre. I do plan on making more videos covering a lot of other fundamentals like crosshair placement, stopping and shooting, how to improve your rifling, and just other topics like that. So let me know what you thought and if there's anywhere I can improve. With that being said, have fun and enjoy the game.